Podcast time, you put your phone away.
Oh.
Careful, please. Break my mic.
Sounds like he's back.
Assalamu alaikum, guys.
What? Hold on a second. What's that voice that I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Is that
That's
big?
me, yeah.
Is that-
Assalamu alaikum, guys.
Is that big man Sam back in the building? Yeah.
Seems to be, yeah.
Subhanallah, 6'6".
Alhamdulillah.
Wow.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very, very well. I'm good.
Good.
Keeping well, strong.
You look well and strong.
Yeah.
You
Thanks.
look bigger. Is that the gym or is that marriage? Gym.
When he said that, bro. Anyway. Hi guys. Assalamu alaikum. We've got big man Sam. Who have we got in this episode, Sam?
Who have we got? We've got Mohammed Tim Humble,
Yes.
who is, for me, someone very special. For a lot of people, someone very special. We had the pleasure of meeting him last year out in Dubai, where he lives and where he teaches. And that was a very special moment. I remember at the time, I didn't say it to his face because the whole praising to someone's face, you don't want to kind of left it. But it was like at the time, do you remember the excitement we had?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to say it. It felt like the equivalent of in Jahiliyyah going to like a pop meeting someone of like in a, you know, a pop star or rap star or whatever it was. It was exciting and it was really beneficial having that little sit down. I remember the conversation. So, alhamdulillah, to be invited today and sit with the both of you and have a conversation about many interesting things. Yeah, it was fantastic, bro.
Alhamdulillah. For those listening, what's basically happening is today's episode is a bonus episode, which basically means it's coming out at some point in the week outside of a Friday. So it's not a regular Friday episode. It also means that this is not a sponsored episode. So we'll be back to like our regular sponsored episodes on the Fridays. For a few reasons. Also, I try my best. Like I know especially with like the students of knowledge and stuff. Like having like episodes sponsored is tough because you don't want to basically have a sponsor and then you're affiliating the student of knowledge basically with them without their permission. Because obviously a lot of people take from students of knowledge. So. For that reason, unless like we've had a meeting with them beforehand or they've asked us to accept a sponsor, etc., we would put these episodes out as bonus episodes, which means that the regular Friday episodes are still going to come out on a weekly. So this is a bonus episode with Ustad Mohammed Tim Humble. Amazing. What did we speak about?
We spoke about Disney.
Yeah, we spoke about Disney movies. We spoke about a lot about the Jinn and the Shaytan. Yeah. A bit about conspiracy theories.
Not really. Didn't get into it too much. We mentioned the
name.
name.
We mentioned the word conspiracy theories.
No, we didn't go into that.
No,
it was
not
good.
at all. We literally didn't go into conspiracy theories at all. Actually, at all.
There was no need to.
No.
But we discussed relevant topics.
Yeah.
And a bit about black magic.
Yep.
Which was interesting
and relevant.
And very relevant.
We spoke about the countryside.
We spoke about pouring hot oil out.
Yeah. We spoke about him not putting his kids on social media.
Not having photos.
Yeah.
We spoke about planning your funeral.
Yes.
To make it easier for the family and, you know, for the special requirements that you might have to put a bit of thought into, you know, it may sound deep and dark, but putting some bit more thought into your death, not only preparing for death, but kind of what's happened around you after you die, which was an interesting thing to be brought up, and it kind of brought home, you know.
It brought home a few truths.
It did bring home a few truths.
Yeah.
It was profound.
I like the fact that you just copied the way I'm sitting.
It was absolutely zero intention.
Yeah, but
and now I realise that you're doing it.
You're doing, Sam, is you're mirroring. When you look up to someone, you mirror them. Yeah.
We just try and sit really different from you. Yeah.
How are you finding the sofas? This is like
much better.
Yeah?
This is proper.
It's proper.
I like it. It's smart. It looks good. It looks really good.
And
I love the shelves.
You could do a podcast like this, sitting like this, innit?
Yeah.
Whereas before, it was a bit like sitting at your office desk.
It was a bit like that.
Yeah.
You're right. This is actually how it makes you feel is nice. It's more relaxing, isn't it?
All we need now is a fireplace.
Yeah.
Some bakhur.
Yeah, we've got that.
Yeah, we had a bakhur sound, but we didn't like it. Just didn't seem right it didn't fit with the decor.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It was nice to have you on this episode.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really, really happy that you invited me. So
don't
thank
say
you.
Like that.
I am.
You can't
invited me.
This is your podcast.
Alhamdulillah. Beautiful podcast. Thank you for inviting me.
You can't say that, bro.
You invited me.
Best
I was, do you know
friends,
what,
Faisal and Sam.
and what did I say? Thank you so much for inviting me because I really want to come. Did I say that or not? Am I lying? I don't know. You feel like I'm not.
No.
Thank you for the invite.
This podcast is your podcast.
Please invite me back.
If you go to...
Will you invite me back?
If you go to iTunes, it says Freshly Grounded, authors, Faisal and Sam.
Will you invite me back?
Bro, this is your podcast. We
Will
want
you
you
invite
back.
me back?
Everyone wants you back.
Will you invite me back? You invited me to today. I don't know. Am I coming next week?
Why would I have to invite? Why would I have to invite you to a podcast that is not mine?
Then why did you invite me today?
No, because I was like, I knew you would like. So I was like, look, I know you're
Of
not.
course.
I know you're not coming down to the FG, but you have to come down for the Team Humble one. And you're like, yeah, we'll make it work, inshallah.
Of course.
Now, but truth be told, obviously, like you know, everything's been a bit crazy.
Yes.
And, I know it sounds like such an excuse, but genuinely, like you live outside of the city that this is filmed in, which is thing one. And you know, for like over a year, you was traveling every week down from outside the city, and then obviously when you, alhamdulillah, had your second child, Allah barak, may Allah bless him. I suppose that you didn't realize, like, I suppose what it would take to balance being like having a big family now, alhamdulillah, as well as running like such a successful international business. And so
yeah, bro, you know what it is. Life gets busy. Certain things happen in your life that you know you can't plan and predict for. And it just, when my second child came, life was just, it just felt intense, busy, stressful. So I had to look at my list of things that I have to do, and even work. I took quite a bit of time out of being in the salon and work and stuff. So it was small sacrifices, but like I was saying to you the other day, my life is getting a bit more stable now. Children are getting older, business is more, So inshallah, I'm definitely going to be coming back on FG.
Inshallah. So let's see how the future is. But we just don't have
people listening. Like
we don't have any dates or anything.
No dates, and I can't. The thing is, I don't want to let anyone down, and I'm not going to claim like I'm the busiest man in the world. But I know, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't love this, and my intention is definitely to return at the right time. But when you say something and you can't live up to it and letting people down, I'm not going to fall into that. But I'm here now, and inshallah, I want to be here again. And
FG is going to always be here waiting for you with that extra chair.
Inshallah, if you invite me.
The only issue is that we still have your 2XL FG sweatshirt here that you never took home, but you requested to be specifically made for you.
I thought you were going to bring that down to me because Are
you going to take it home with you today?
I won't take because I've got to travel around. I don't want to hold a big grey jumper. Next time for Thursday when you come down for your haircut, why don't you bring it?
But you know that I'm not going to bring it.
Then why do I have to walk around London with a big grey jumper? I don't want to. I've got a jumper on. I can't put it on, so I'll be that guy.
Why don't you just take that jumper off, just dash it in the bin, and then just wear that one? The jumper you're wearing, what is that?
Oh, okay, fine. I'll put that. I'll put that one over. I'll put that one over it.
All right, guys. Listen, this is Freshly Grounded episode something. I don't know. 80, 86, 85. I don't know.
It was 30 last time, wasn't it? SubhanAllah.
Guys, enjoy this episode, and there will be, like I said, we'll be back to our regular episodes and our regular sponsorships and everything on Fridays as usual. Without any further ado, let's get into it.
And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded.
After that bit.
The brand new podcast.
And after that bit?
By best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
Alhamdulillah, we are joined by Sheikh Muhammad Tim Humble. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You came back.
I came back. I'm so happy to be here, wallahi.
I'm so surprised. I didn't know if you would want to come back to us.
No, it was such an amazing experience last time. I enjoyed it so much. I saw so many benefits from it that wallahi it was something that when you told me you had time, I had to do it.
So time for you, my time is there. And this time, alhamdulillah, we have Sam with us as well, because the last episode, unfortunately, we weren't able to do.
No.
Big man Sam, 6'6".
Alhamdulillah, back in the building. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Good to be back.
Have you gained any height in the time that we last saw you?
I hope not, mate.
Okay.
6'6", I think we're just staying as that.
We're keeping it 6'6".
Yeah, I hope so. Alhamdulillah, I'm happy with that. And yourself? Gained or lost? Or?
No, I'm still like 5'8" with shoes.
5'8" shoes.
Depending what shoes I wear. Yeah, I'm right.
Gained some muscle in the gym though. I see new PB.
Fat. No, I've gained some fat, alhamdulillah.
Gained some fat.
Yeah, it's you know what Muslim Bilal saw me the other day, and he goes, bro, mashallah, you're getting big. Is that gym or marriage? A bit of both. I told my wife, she was like, why are you blaming the marriage?
You look good, alhamdulillah.
Sheikh, there's so much that I want to kind of talk about, especially now that we have Sam here. But first, I want to kind of go over like when we first ever met, because I think there's a lot of the story that you don't know, and until now, it's all remained a secret always between me, Sam, and Shahid. But I'm gonna release the secret now.
Okay.
What happened that day is we, you know what I'm gonna talk about.
Yeah.
So what happened that day is that we were planning. We had planned to meet yourself, and I think we spoke to a few brothers, and we spoke to Ustad Abdul Rahman, and we said like, so it turned out that we were gonna meet for dinner, right? And then what had happened is you had been doing a class from Fajr all the way to Isha that day, and we weren't aware. So halfway through the day, I think we had found out that you were doing that, and so we were like, okay, let's not be too positive on the idea that we're gonna go for dinner with Ustad Tim, because it sounds like he's had a really busy day, he might just want to go home and sleep. But we were really excited, right? So half of us was like, oh, like, we hope this happens. And then the other half of us was like, okay, manage your expectations. So then it got quite late, and I think you were still in your class. And the brother who was delegating with us, he was saying that you were still in your class, and it was quite late now. So we decided, we hadn't eaten all day, had we? Because we wanted to save it for when we were with you or something. And then what happened is we were like, all right, look guys, let's do this. Let's go for dinner by ourselves, because it will work effective, because it looks like we're not going to meet with our team. And so we left to go to dinner. While we almost get to dinner, and then we almost get to the mall, and then we get the message saying that, hey, it's all good. If you can make your way now, we're going to basically hook up this dinner. Like we'll eat some dinner with Ustad Tim or Ustad Abdul Rahman. And then we were like, oh no, like we're on our way like to dinner. What do we do? So we decided this is our plan. We thought in front of you, it would be rude of us to eat too much, but we hadn't eaten all day, we were so hungry. So it was rude for us to eat too much, but it would be rude for us to like not eat at all. And so what we did is, we didn't think it would be not rude to not eat at all. We thought that it would be rude to eat in front of you. That's what we thought. We thought we were so hungry, we don't know what we're doing with that thing, but we're too rude to eat in front of him, like, kind of thing, or like to be like scoffing our faces because we were so hungry. So we said, let's go for a small drive-through, just pick up some food on the way, and that way we'll eat, and then we're not too rude in front of Ustad Tim looking like scavengers just shoving food down our mouth. So we ate, and as you know, if you don't eat all day, you eat a little bit and you get so full. So we ate a little bit, we got so full, and then we met with you, and you decided to take us to a restaurant, and you started speaking in Arabic to the waiter, and we didn't know what you were saying, and you were ordering the food. And you ordered platters for us, obviously out of the kindness of your heart, and we didn't want to tell you that we had eaten. So we were like, oh, okay, Jazakallah khair. And then you were like, come on, brothers, eat. And then we were like trying to eat, and we were so full. We were trying to eat flat. And then we thought we got away with it, right? And then towards the end of the meal, you looked at me and you said, brother, I've seen you haven't eaten hardly anything. Eat with me. And you shared your plate with me, and I was like, okay, so that's the true story behind our
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Do you remember the excitement when we were outside Dubai Mall, and the whole thought we were talking about it, and we were kind of didn't know what to do. We were driving around the mall and that, and then we ended up we left. But remember the excitement we had?
Yeah, it was
crazy. Alhamdulillah, and it happened.
Because we'd been watching your stuff for a while before, and I think Sam related to you a lot, just by being like a revert, and you kind of talking about your upbringing and that kind of stuff in some of your older stuff. And I related to you a lot because when I started practicing, I was like actively looking for people to learn from that I didn't feel, because all I knew of Islamic teachers was like old Asian men, because I was so ignorant, right? So when I saw you, I was like, oh, like this is a young British lad talking about deen who has knowledge. I was like, I think that's why we resonated with you. That's why we were so excited.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Wallah, it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be able to learn something from your deen and to be able to share it with people. Wallah, and this is all we try to do. And we don't, it's not like we're claiming to be, these people of knowledge, but some of those older people you're talking about, they're real people of knowledge. People who have spent their whole life studying Islam. But one of the things I think is really important to have is it's important to have people who can take their speech, the speech of the scholars, and can just package it in a way that resonates with different people, from different backgrounds. And that's, when I went to Medina to study Islam, one of the things that I think Medina does very well is they try to bring people from lots of different backgrounds, because their idea is, look, you tend to resonate with people that are similar to you. That's just like a fact of da'wah, right? When you're talking to people about Islam, you tend to resonate with people that are kind of in some way similar to you. So what they try and do is bring people from all over the world, from different backgrounds, different cultures, different ethnicities, different kind of social backgrounds, and they teach them Islam. And the idea is that those people are going to go back to people that kind of, you know, appreciate them, resonate with them, and they're just going to take the speech of those scholars who spent their life studying Islam and just package it for the people. So I kind of see myself in a way as being kind of like a glorified translator, really, in a way. You know, it's not like, and to be honest, Islam is like that. And it's one of the beautiful things about Islam is that anything anybody says, there's nothing new. What we're saying is we're bringing something that it's the same thing the Prophet ﷺ said. It's what the Sahaba said. It's what the big scholars of Islam in the past said. But it's just how you package it in a way that people kind of understand and look at you and think, okay, I like that person. And there's a hadith, and I was thinking this hadith is really amazing, that al-arwahu junudun mujannada, the souls are like a conscripted army. So it's like some people, you just, on a soul to soul level, you just get on with them. You know, it's like a hadith that when you hear about it, it fits in. That there is just some people, you just meet them and you just resonate with them in a way you can't explain. Because you might not even share any sort of characteristics with those people. You might not even be similar to that person on a lot of levels, but your soul just gets on with their soul. And there are some people that, even though they haven't done anything wrong and they're nice people, good Muslims and everything, but you just don't gel with them, because your soul and their soul just, they don't match, right? They don't gel. And they don't have anything against them. It just you don't click with them like that. So this idea that there are people you just click with, that's really a real thing, you know, but it's on a soul level.
So that's a spiritual thing. So you meet someone that you don't really gel with, don't really, you know, we know those kind of things. Is that a spiritual thing then, rather than something that you just don't like what their sort of characteristics and things like that? Is it more?
It can be either, but there's definitely there's a level on which it's a spiritual thing, and there's a level in which it could be down to characteristics. So for example, there might be somebody who, when you see some aspect of the way that they're living their life and you don't like it, or some aspect of the way they behave or their akhlaq, that's more of an obvious thing. But sometimes a person you just meet and you don't click with them, even though they're a great person. And you really, what they're doing amazing stuff, and they're really, they're giving a lot for the deen and a lot for them, they're putting a lot back into the community, but you don't click with them, you don't gel with them. And that's something normal. Human beings are like that. It's on a spiritual level, on the level of the soul, right? So
So then that's really everyone who's out there sort of seeking knowledge. There's almost certain teachers, certain people that you should find that you can probably take more from, opposed to, like you were saying, that you used to consider people that you had to listen to were sort of older Asian scholars or whatever it was. So really out there, everyone can benefit a lot more by just finding that person that they can kind of relate to, and they can kind of have that, not a chemistry as such, but it's, for instance, when a lot of people sent me your lectures on black magic, how I came into the deen was connected through all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people kept on sending me this stuff, and alhamdulillah, straight away, I think it was your accent and the fact that you were just a white bloke at the time, you were wearing a white throbe, you had a beard, and I was like, wow, like at the time that's how I looked as well, and I connected to you, and it was really, really beneficial. But there's other people who can send me something and I can't almost listen to 5-10 minutes of it, not because what they're saying is wrong or anything, it's just because you don't feel it as much sometimes. So really it's about searching for the correct kind of dawah that kind of feels right to you, in the sense that you find that teacher, find that person that you can resonate with, and what their words have an effect on you. So it's about finding that person, isn't it, really? Yeah,
for sure. I think there are different sort of things you have to look at when you sort of deciding who you're going to learn from. One of the things is that you got to be careful who you learn from.
Certainly.
Because there's a statement of one of the tabi'in, one of the imams of the generation after the companions. And he said, "Inna hadha al-ilma deen, fanzuru amman ta'khudhuna deenakum." This knowledge that's your religion. You're going to worship Allah based on what that person tells you. So you be careful who you're going to take it. Just don't be like, the Arabs, they have a really, really beautiful expression. I love this expression. They call it hatib layl, the person who collects firewood at night. It's an example they give, or a proverb of someone who isn't really careful about what they pick up. You know, so this guy's going around the forest at night, and he's got his hands out, and he's just picking things up off the ground. He doesn't know he's picking up a scorpion, he's picking up a snake, he's picking up wood, he's picking up someone's leftover rubbish. He doesn't have a clue what he's doing. He's just sort of blindly going around just picking things up. And they give that example for someone who isn't careful about what the information that they take in. So you do have to be pretty careful. You have to make sure the person, because there's like the scholars say, like there's two people that can really ruin your life, right? A doctor who doesn't know what he's doing and a teacher who doesn't know what he's doing. Because those two people, they can seriously ruin your life. But the doctor can ruin your life, and the teacher can ruin your akhirah. That's the difference, you know. Wow. So you got to be a little careful. You also got to look at not just knowledge, but also the person's manners and the way they behave. And they used to say about Imam Ahmed, used to say that when Imam Ahmed used to have huge gatherings, you know, like you can't put in numbers. I mean, thousands and thousands of people. And most of the people came to him just to learn manners and etiquettes and just how to behave and how to appreciate knowledge before they would even learn, you know, sort of like hadith from him or some rulings of Islam from him. And that's pretty important as well. And it's also important, the last thing I would say is really important, is put people in their place. Because one of the things that we have in our time is people get really confused about who's a scholar, who isn't, what level is this person on. So a person who listens to my lectures and thinks, for example, that I am a big scholar of Islam with, you know, like who has his own opinions and his own, you know, like ideas and things like that, that person's going to end up not getting from me what they should, because they didn't put me in the right place. They put me way above where I should be. But if they say, look, Muhammad Tim, somebody who's studying Islam, he's trying to take what the scholars are saying and just present it to people in a nice way, well, then you understand the level of the person you're learning from. So, you know, you don't confuse the university professor who's been in Islam for, you know, however many, he's been teaching Islam for 30 years, and the guy who learned Islam last week. So it's a problem, because in our age, people tend to get known through their social media profile, through popularity. You know, and there's a lot of people today who might know a particular sort of teacher or a particular da'iyah. They might know them better than they would know the major scholars in the world today. Like if they saw the major scholar in the world, who's that guy there? Oh, but that guy there, I know him. Yeah, like so it's down to, so you have to just, it's not a problem to learn from those people who are younger in terms of their knowledge, but just put people where they should be, and don't, you know, we're talking about how you introduce people, right? We were talking about that earlier, right? When you introduce people, it's really important when you introduce someone, you don't confuse people and put them in a level above where they should be. So it's like another famous saying that the Arabs have. They say, you know, nas manazilahum, yani, or anzil nas manazilahum. Put people in the place where they should be. And if you do that, you have no problem, because you know this guy I'm listening to, they're benefiting me. But I also know that, you know, they're at a certain level of knowledge. And you know, so you kind of expect that. I wouldn't go to someone like Muhammad Tim if there was a big crisis and all of the scholars are arguing, debating with each other. I'm not going to go to Muhammad Tim and ask him, like, what's your fatwa? You know, like, because I know that he's not at that level. So that's important, wallah, to put the people in the right place and know who's your senior scholars, who are the people who are in the middle, who's your junior sort of, you know, people of knowledge. And then that way you don't get confused.
Do you think that can be tough sometimes for like a layman to know where to put somebody, like if they're just watching their lectures or something, to know how they should perceive that person?
Yeah, it can be tough.
Does that require knowledge, basically? To
a certain extent, yeah. It does, some of it's common sense, because if you've got someone who's a young person who is, you know, who you know started studying, you know, seeking knowledge at 22, 23 years old, you know, who graduated 5 years ago, you know that person's not going to be the same as the person who started seeking knowledge at 5 years old, memorized the Quran at 8 years old, you know, like got his degree at 18, his doctorate at 25, and now is, you know, like has been teaching Islam for the last 30 years. Like common sense wise, you know, those two people are not going to be the same. Also, in the way that it's, you know, the way that you look at how other people perceive them. You know, the scholars know the scholars, right? You know, like you see how other people perceive them. But it's important for us as people who are giving da'wah in the West, it's important for us not to not to confuse people. And that's why we talk about, for example, the title Sheikh. Like for me, the title Sheikh's not that big of a deal because, I mean, we use that for the guy that makes the falafel. You know, like if you go in Saudi to the guy that makes the falafel and you put, you know, he's making you a nice falafel sandwich, you might say, Sheikh, can you just, you know, give me extra mayonnaise? Mm-hmm. It's not, you don't really think he's like, you're not asking him for a fatwa, you're asking him for mayonnaise. Like it's not that much of a problem. But the problem is when people use the word sheikh and they really think that means that, you know, like people will say like, oh, you know, such a esteemed scholar as yourself, and you're thinking, oh dear, you know, this person misunderstood, you know, like, and that could misguide a person because that person could really, you know, just get confused. So it's important for us that we give out the right message, you know, to tell people, look, you know, these guys who are graduates from these Islamic universities and they're out there giving dawah, you know, they have a particular level, even the best of them. And we're all different amongst each other. Which, you know, two people can graduate from the same university, same course, and one of them could have an immense amount of knowledge and one less. But at the same time, you kind of have a rough idea. So your common sense kind of gives you a ballpark. And then as you learn and develop knowledge more, that's what Imam Shafi'i said. It's really profound what he said. He said, كلما أدبني الدهر أراني نقص عقلي وإذا ما زدت علما زادني علما بجهلي. He said, you know, when time goes by, it corrects me. Time, it corrects me. I get like almost sort of, you know, chastised by time as time passes by. And it shows me the deficiency of my intellect. It shows me how I didn't know anything before. And whenever I get more knowledge, it just shows me how ignorant I used to be. So when anyone gets more knowledge, they start to realize, oh, okay, that guy that I thought was like Sheikh al-Mashayikh, the big Sheikh, you know, he's like, you know, if I went to my Sheikh's class in Medina, he wouldn't even let me sit in the first row. He'd be like, get back in the back. That's where you belong, you know. So you kind of learn that as you learn more. But the most important thing is the first point I mentioned, that you're careful who you learn from. Because even if you're learning from someone very junior, at least if you know that person's a safe pair of hands, they're not going to give you something crazy. They're not going to tell you something that's going to take you away from the path of Allah. They're not going to mix up the religion and bring some new things. That's the most important thing, because that at least you know your capital is, you know, that your capital sum is okay, you're safe, right?
How can a normal person who perhaps isn't always, you know, blessed enough to be around people like that all the time, how are they to know, or what signs can they look out for to know that this is a safe person to learn from?
Okay, so there's a few things. There's initial things and there's things while you're learning. So the first thing we're going to say is everybody has mistakes, right? So we're not going to say the person should have zero mistakes. He's never made a mistake, because there's none of us that have never made a mistake. But what you want to see is what Ash-Shatibi said in Al-I'tisam about, you don't want to see a person who the mistakes become the norm for them. You know, like especially big things about Allah and your belief and your iman, and you start seeing that person's making mistakes in those things, and those mistakes become the norm. It's not like one or two errors here and there. It's become like that's the way they think, and that's the kind of mentality they've set out. So before, what you want to look at is you kind of want to look at, you've got people you trust. So someone says, look, you know, Muhammad Tim, I listened to your lectures, you know, it resonated with me. I kind of trust you that you're okay. Who would you recommend me to listen to?
Okay.
Or who do I see you promoting? Now be careful with that just because a person goes to a conference doesn't mean they necessarily promote the people with them, because the people at the conference may not be people you know. But generally as a whole, who do I see you around all the time? I will see you around with that brother, and I will see you, you know, working together with that brother and giving lectures. Okay, you know, that seems like that's kind of an initial feeling, right? You have to start with trusting someone. That's why we say to the reverts that when you first come into Islam, you got to start by trusting somebody. You know, you can't trust nobody, because then you're just an island on your own. But you say, okay, I kind of trust you, as you know, you're a starting point for me. I realize you're not 100% correct, but you know, I feel okay with you. I feel all right. And then you see what that person is recommending, who that person is with, and you can start to sort of take from them. And then during that process, if you see that you come across things that don't sound right, they just don't, that doesn't, doesn't click with me, or something where you have learned something different, or something where you see other people criticizing them for this, then you just make a note of it. Doesn't mean that person is necessarily wrong or that person is necessarily, but you just make a note. Like, look, I used to do it with my teachers. Because even when I went to Medina, not every teacher, because even when I went to Medina, not every teacher is going to be, you know, perfect as they should be. So if I heard something from my teacher that contradicted someone else, or I saw that the other teachers used to kind of have a go at that teacher and say he doesn't know what he's doing in this, I would just make a note of it. Then I would go to the person I would trust and I would say to them, look, Sheikh, like, he said this, and I'm not after, you know, you to blame him or something, but I just kind of want to know, like, is this right? Is it wrong? So he says it's wrong. Okay, somebody made a mistake. But when you see that mistake becomes the norm and it becomes like the person's methodology, that's how they behave, that's just what they think, and they've taken that as the way that they kind of worship Allah and the way they live their life, that's when you want to say, look, I don't want to be taken from this person anymore, because that's not going to benefit me anymore, you know?
Do you think it's also important for everyone to eventually have a teacher that's like their teacher? Because I can't remember the word for it. I know you'll be able to remind me, but like the word for being a... we have our guest. Let me put the wheel on break so we can give salams and then I'll put it back on. Yeah.
Akid.
Okay, so we're back. So my question was kind of like, is it important that everybody has a teacher that is like they're the one that they can have access to at all times, like they can WhatsApp, build a close relationship with, and then that teacher like kind of like raises them, like almost like a father figure, but not the father. What's the word for that?
Yeah, that's that issue of like nurturing, like tarbiyah. Yeah, like definitely. That's the way that people used to learn. That's the way that we still tell people to learn today. Like you have a sheikh, like not like a sheikh as in you watch someone on YouTube, you know, like you have a sheikh that you become their student and you learn from them and they teach you and they guide you through what it is that you need to learn. You're going to learn a lot in a lot better way like that. But yeah, I guess that what we were talking about earlier is more about the issue of sort of who you choose to listen to in the beginning. Sure. But yeah, when you start to formally seek knowledge and you say like, and that's something everybody has to make a decision to do, you know, like, because there's knowledge is of two types. There's essential knowledge and there's kind of voluntary knowledge. Like your essential knowledge, this is like, look, this knowledge is essential. Like everybody has to know what La ilaha illallah means. Everybody has to know how to pray. Everybody has to know the pillars of Islam and Iman. But not everybody has to go beyond that to formally say, I'm going to study Islam and I'm going to become a student who is dedicating my time to study Islam. But when you make that transition and you say, yeah, I am going to do, that's what I want to do. I'm inspired to be a person. I want to be a person of knowledge. Then, at that point, really, you can't really do it without having a teacher that guides you along the way. And there's sometimes you might be able to have multiple teachers sometimes if the subjects are totally separate. You might be able to have a distance learning relationship with a teacher if you can't sit with them. But yeah, having a teacher, that's the basic principle. And also starting in your locality. Because a lot of people, where they go a bit wrong in this is they start thinking about, well, if I'm going to learn like Islam, I'm going to change my life and I'm going to stop just listening to lectures and I'm going to formally study like Islam in a structured way. The person starts thinking, right, how can I get to Medina? Or how can I get to Makkah or Riyadh or Kuwait or Qatar or, whatever it is, Emirat, they want to go to say, how can I get to a place where I can travel across the world and, find somebody there? But the original principle is you look for somebody in your locality to start with, and you try and drain the resources from your locality. And I remember it's a story like when I first...
I remember the story from your Medina story, right?
So like when I went for a reference, to go to Medina, you got to get a reference, right? From a sheikh. So there was a sheikh who used to visit us in Newcastle. And I went to him and I said to him, Sheikh, if I could have a reference from you, it would be great. And of course I said it through a translator because I couldn't speak Arabic. And Sheikh kind of clocked onto the fact that I'm saying this through a translator. And he said, well, you don't speak Arabic. And I said, no, Sheikh, not yet. But when I go to Medina, I'll learn. And he refused to give me a reference. He said, no. He said, until you learn where you are, you're not going to learn. You're not going to go abroad and learn somewhere else. You kind of like got to drain the resources, use up the resources you have in your locality. And you'll be shocked what you have in your locality. You'll be shocked. Like somebody might travel around the world for a teacher, for example, a Quran teacher, like say, and your own locality next door to you, you have someone who is extremely proficient in that can be your, and yeah, you know, you can always find someone more knowledgeable, right? But that person might be just your starting point and your teacher that starts you off. And when you're learning in your locality, it's so much easier because you're comfortable, you're in a place, you know, the people, you know, the language is not a problem, and you have everything there. And then when you've drained that, you move to the nearest, the next best thing, the nearest best thing, if that makes sense. So the nearest place I can go to where I'm gonna benefit, but I'm more than where I benefit now, but it's near-ish to me. You know, somebody might be in, I don't know, one of the cities away, from, let's say, for example, somebody's in Newcastle, where I come from, and they've used up all the resources in Newcastle, and they say, well, you know what it is? I'm going to travel to London, or I'm going to travel to Birmingham, because there's more people of knowledge in those localities, more Muslims, so I can learn more from there, but I still don't need to go yet abroad. And if a person does that, maximizes that, and then takes the opportunity to go abroad when they can, they're going to get a lot more out of it. And that doesn't mean don't take the opportunity when it comes. If somebody just says to you, hey, you want to travel to Saudi Arabia to study? Okay, fine, yeah, I'll go tomorrow. But sometimes the mentality is that when I go somewhere else, I'm going to study. And it's a mentality we have about Islam across the board, like when this happens, I'm going to start practicing. When this happens, I'm going to start studying. When this happens, I'm going to give time and I'm going to start memorizing Quran. And it's always something in the future, and it's really important when you've got your home, your hometown, that you take advantage of it. And you'd be surprised what you can find if you look.
You mentioned that you spoke about that in one of your previous talks, and I just remember something else from your previous talk. So the last podcast episode we did, a lot of it was kind of based around your journey to Islam and stuff. And I remember thinking to myself after, I was like, that was such an amazing episode. But one thing that I think that you are known for is the issue of like black magic and Shaytan and all that kind of stuff. And I really wanted to delve into that topic with you. But I was like, we'll have to save that for another podcast because it's so vast. And so that's what I kind of really wanted to speak about today, because I think we haven't actually spoken about that, or the effects for the Shaytan and stuff too much on this podcast. I think we should, I think generally, because we try and stay away from especially stuff with too much knowledge and stuff. We can obviously ask ourselves, we just conversational and stuff. But one thing that I remember just from one of your previous talks, I don't know if you remember this because it must have been many years ago. You were doing a teenager Q&A. Do you remember that? I think it was in Green Lane. And what happened is one of the questions somebody asked you was, what is it? And I might get some of this wrong, so correct me if I'm misquoting you.
Okay.
But someone said something along the lines of, what is it that you fear for the teenagers of this generation? And I remember thinking to myself before you had answered that he's going to say something like drugs or women or pornography, etc. And I remember being so surprised by the answer, but then thinking, oh my gosh, that makes the most sense, because it's almost like a gateway. And you said, the thing that I fear most for the teenagers, do you think you can think of what I'm going to say?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe I remember.
You said the thing that I fear the most for the teenagers is the movies. And you were saying that especially things like, for example, there's this one aspect where right now magic is being so promoted in movies like Harry Potter and all of these other movies. There's loads of them where basically they make magic seem like this really cool thing, which makes children want to just start off by just maybe getting a wand or something, and even that's kind of like a gateway. And secondly, horror movies. And you mentioned that someone might say, oh, I love horror movies and it doesn't scare me, but for that person you were saying that eventually it will just start with you thinking that you don't get scared, but eventually you might just look around the corner when you hear a noise in your house, and slowly it's building you to become scared of the Shaytan. I found that so interesting.
Well, I think sometimes the things that worry you the most are not the biggest sins necessarily. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Inna akhwafa ma akhafu alaykum. So the thing I fear for you the most. And for in different narrations, one of the narrations he said that the sort of the shirk al-khafi, like the when you show off and things like that, that's not the worst thing you can do in Islam, right? That's not like there are a lot worse things in terms of that a person could do that could take them out of Islam. But why did he say that? This is what I'm most worried about, because sometimes certain things might be a gateway that lead people to other things. So movies, music, popular culture, all of those things have a big influence on the way. And now, more you can add to that also, YouTube and social media and Instagram and things like that, and the way people get affected by things like that. It does have a huge change. The culture changes. And that's why one of the things I mentioned about this before is if you look at the effect that movies had across let's say like from the 1930s, 1940s onwards, and how society changed with the movies, right? The movies kind of introduced something into the society, like the sort of more liberal sort of attitudes to relationships, moving away from things like marriage, people having many relationships with different people, that kind of thing. It really, the movies played a really big part in spreading that culture among people. And even the way people talk, I was just looking, because I do a lot of work with young people and teenagers and things like that. And I was just looking through, the most common tags on social media, most common things people say, the kind of language people are using. And a big percentage of it comes from movies, music. So it has a big effect on the way people think, the way people speak, the way people, the goals people aspire to. And it did when I was young. I mean, when I was young, you used to go to the movies, like before I started practicing Islam. And when you used to go to the movies, what you see, you want to copy people, you aspire to a certain lifestyle, and the things that you see there really affect a person. And there's a lot of things I worry about in that. It's not just the Shaytan and the magic stuff. That was probably maybe because the question was targeted probably to that. It was we were talking about that topic, and I said, like, don't forget about, but just generally the effect that movies, music, and also now maybe more so that you've got sort of things where people are watching a lot of stuff online and things like that. Maybe that definitely didn't exist when I was younger. But the same thing goes, the movies, the music, and the popular culture that people, TV series that people watch, has a big impact on the way that people behave and the way people perceive things and the way it affects people and the way they think. And if you just look on that aspect that I spoke about, the Shaytan, I mean, one of the things, it's not the horror movies that actually worry me the most. What worries me the most are the Disney cartoons. Because young kids, I mean, older guys, we're a bit like, kind of get the idea, like, this is fake, right? It's a movie. The guy's not really flying around on a broomstick. But, you got like, the vast majority of movies, the sort of Disney, like, I'm not just Disney, but, just as an example, these movies and cartoons and things that are aimed at very, very young children, all these stories are built upon magic, adultery, disbelief, all kinds of stuff. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That's just real life.
That's true.
Just go open go open Wikipedia. What I do now is, because you can't watch a movie, right? So I don't go and, let me just check out this movie to see what people are doing. I just read the plot on Wikipedia, right? So I just open the plot on Wikipedia and read through it, so I know what's going on. And you just go through them, all these these cartoons, and it's all like from everything from, whether it's like these classical fairy tales, and stories, they're all built upon, normalizing things that are big sins in Islam and big social ills, and they're just totally normalized for very impressionable, very, very young children. And these young kids, like you see them now, they put that, broomstick between their legs and they're like just around and I'm playing, whatever, Quidditch or something on my broomstick, but the reality of it is that it's all these messages that people are getting. And I'm not, one of the things I'm definitely not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not this person who's like, I'm not that person. I think there's enough problems in the world as it is without like adding to them, but I really, you don't have to be like a genius to see that they do normalize things among very young children. And even now when we see the attitudes towards people's sort of, issues relating to gender, issues relating to sort of a person's orientation, homosexuality, and all that type of stuff that's going on, that you're seeing now as these sort of cartoons and movies come out, that they normalize things that we as Muslims would say that this is not something we feel, right, as Muslims, that we don't feel this is normal in society. It's like a regular thing that's kind of a norm. Instead, we feel this is like something that is, it's normalized through the popular culture, TV and movie and music. And even things like the violence, that also worries me a lot. It's not just like the amount of violence in like TV series and things like that people see, and it normalizes it for people. It makes people, it becomes normal. Like kids don't find it to be strange or something. And that, all this influence. And I just feel that like when it's very, very young children, that's had a big impact on the way that you see the world after that.
Sam, having like two young boys, have you experienced about in that? Because I know when I went to your house, I think the few times that I went, I always see in your house you seem to always have on like the David Attenborough kind of animal and like kind of stuff, and like showing like the earth and like really like things that really show the creation of Allah. And I know you like kind of putting that stuff on. Generally,
yeah, and also with the shop as well. Generally, try and stick to that as a guideline. For my little one, for my older one, he likes to watch something to be entertained, but quite often we have to turn off what it is, because do you know what? There's so much magic in all these cartoons. So much strange things. Do you say like you're not a conspiracy theorist, but you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to kind of just take a look and actually realize actually how it's bizarre. And going back to Disney, like Disney is full of Shaytan. It's full of magic. Mickey Mouse is on doing some crazy stuff. There's Fantasia. There's loads of stuff. I mean, if you go back to who actually kind of wrote Disney, and you actually look at Walt Disney himself and what he was upon, he's very questionable. He had some kind of strange belief system. But when you look at it and you think this is what our children, well, this is what's supposed to be what our children kind of watch. Yeah, it has a big effect. So, try and put certain things on. Quite often we have to turn it off. Even for instance, Peppa Pig. The whole thing is based on a little girl who has got no respect for her father, and the father is a joke, and he's just a big fat mess. And the whole concept is that the dad of the family is a bit of a joke. And you've got to think about it like, do I want my children to think that
I'm a joke?
The father is the joke of the family, or is he the leader and whatever? So it's a tough one, and we keep an eye on whatever he's watching, whatever he's seeing. We watch it. And we monitor it. But something strange happened the other day. He's got a little potato gun that you shove in a potato and you can shoot it. There's one in the house that I don't know where it came from, but he had it the other day, and it was strange because he pointed it, and as he pointed it, his face turned from smiling to like serious, like that. My missus saw him do that, and she goes, "Why is he where's he got that from? What was he doing?" And I had no explanation for it, but he's obviously seen it somewhere. When he had this potato gun in his hand, it went from the boy laughing, and then suddenly he was focusing on like about to take a shot. SubhanAllah, I was just like, we were just trying to work out where he's obviously seen that action somewhere, because his face, it was weird. He turned all serious, and so yeah, I mean, we do our best to monitor it, and if it's not, if it's blatantly not correct, we'll lock it off straight away. And generally try and avoid the TV going on, bro, because there's generally not much stuff on TV that is
safe. Really safe,
yeah. Even the Islamic cartoons and stuff, they've all got music as backing, as the backing and stuff. And so you always got to question it. It's like sometimes just lesser of two is just to lock it off.
I remember seeing a video on YouTube where it was like exposing Disney's like
I've seen that
thing or something, and I saw things that I was really confused by. But what it is that unless someone points it out to you, you don't realize you see it, but then you start thinking, is that actually like?
Is it that deep?
No, not is it that deep. The opposite. Like, you think, right, like, are they trying to show things subliminally? Is it trying to like put a subliminal message in children?
That's what I'm saying.
Heads?
Is it deep in the sense that have they planned that to plant in our children?
Yeah, but then
that's where I'm not sure.
I think so. Yes, because I think there is an agenda. Let's forget conspiracies. I think there is an agenda. I think Shaitan is real. We know this. And like I said about, if you actually look at Walt Disney, the man, he was, he was a Freemason. He had lots of interesting beliefs. And then you look at some of his work, when he's indoctrinating a lot of things like sex and magic and everything for people, for kids that are tiny. I think, I believe there's something deeper behind that. I don't think it's a coincidence. And as Muslim, yes, we can see I think there's something in The Lion King or something where you can see like they kind of make like a pair of breasts or whatever in the cartoon. It's
In the clouds.
in the clouds or something.
Oh, I see.
There's
That. Do you
loads
know what it was?
like
It was like a penis.
was it a penis? Is
Yeah.
it? Fine, but they had loads of.
Which always confused me.
Yeah, but then it's for kids, and I don't believe these things happen by accident. I believe I'm not saying there's when they're writing it and they're drawing it all, there's a devil worshipper there planning it. I don't know how deep it goes like that, but I believe there is an agenda behind it from early. Of course it is, but even things like when I was a kid watching TV, I'd noticed that the presenters of the TV channels always changed. It went from just maybe it was a guy and a girl, and then it went to a very feminine guy, and then suddenly all I'm watching is very, very feminine guys hosting all these kind of TV shows, whether it's kids or whether it's, and you just notice these things as things have gone along. You notice an agenda, because I think it's quite obvious. You notice these certain things that more and more, to the point now we see these things every time I walk the streets. You see these kind of things that you didn't used to see sort of 10, 15 years ago, of a lot of more cross-dressing, a lot more, all these kind of things. You've got to think, why is society so accepting of it now? What's happened in the last 10 years for us to think that? And you look at it, and it is from indoctrination, from music, from TV, from films, because where else, and from the internet, because where else are they going to get inspired, and where are they going to get it from? Because it's not in our natural fitra to do these things, so it's coming from somewhere. And guess what? Every kid, unfortunately, has got access to a smartphone where they can view whatever, or a TV where really you can view whatever. So
it's very concerning. But I think, see, the reason why I say I'm not sure about the whole, the more sort of when we get closer towards the sort of conspiracy theories and things, is I worry that people don't accept the truth, because the conspiracy theories at times, what they can do is they can actually push people away from the truth by basically, you make something that people instinctively say, oh, that can't be true. And so they totally reject what is blatant and obvious. So for example, it's well known that movie makers and film studios have a particular political agenda. That's that's well documented. They usually, liberal, in the US, they usually lean towards, the sort of, the liberal sort of left, sort of, the liberal left, if you like, or centre left. That's typically what Hollywood has always promoted, and these are facts that you can actually you can factually prove. So I don't like you said, I don't actually think there's somebody there who's actually sort of a devil worshipper who's like writing these things in. I think it's instinctive from being around the Shaitan. That I think the one planning it and the one who's putting these messages in is Shaitan, and Shaitan is inspiring these human beings who are far away from Allah, far away from their fitrah, far away from the natural, and Shaitan is inspiring them that, oh, why don't you do this? And they may well believe that what they're doing is completely right. They may believe that we are opening people's minds to proper equality and fair treatment and human rights, and that's what they may genuinely believe. But in fact, this is just the inspiration of the Shaitan. It's taking you away from the natural behaviors that are normal. And there's some things I really worry about. We worry about people's behavior towards women. Like when you have all of these relationships and you have all this violence and stuff like that, and you have people also with this, addicted to, so pornography and all this stuff, and all these messages being thrown at young kids and younger and younger and younger, the way that they perceive relationships with women and the way that they mistreat women, people start mistreating the women around them because they see them as just objects.
It's true. It's true that we're almost seeing that that movies and stuff that were rated 18 a few years ago are almost rated 12A now.
Definitely,
and the kind of stuff which is surprising.
Younger and younger ages, and one of the things that shocked me is the change in music videos. So when I was younger, before I started practicing, music channels were on. It wasn't something that you would have to switch off when your parents came in the room. And sometimes you go into a hotel and they have a big TV with the music videos on. And honestly, I think that would have been on channels that would have been restricted to 18 and above before. Yeah. And it's completely normalized. So it's not just a magic thing that just worries me. It's across the board, all of the social ills and the things that the very young kids are learning, and younger and younger and younger. We're getting kids at very, very young ages with really, really, really scary, things coming out. It makes you worried for your kids, bro.
Let's talk about magic though, because it's something that I wanted to discuss in this podcast, because I don't think we'll have the opportunity to talk about it much with other people, because perhaps we won't have anyone on the podcast for a while who's as experienced or as knowledgeable in it as yourself. Do you think that people are scared to learn about the Shaytan and about Jinn because it's scary to learn about the quote unquote supernatural?
You get people of different types, right? So some people they take it like an entertainment, you know, and they want to learn about it, but they don't want to learn seriously. They don't really want to protect themselves. They just want to be entertained by the whole topic, which is very interesting and very kind of weird and sometimes a bit scary. And so you get some people like that who will watch stuff online, but they don't really take from it or learn from it. It's more about entertainment. And then on the other side, you get some people who just don't want to know anything about it, because they're just really scared that even learning about it, they're going to get afflicted or they're going to have problems happen to them and stuff like that. You get those people as well. And really what you want most people to be is like, look, this is something that exists. It's a fact of life. We need to learn about it so we can learn how to protect ourselves, protect our children, protect our families, and how, you know, we can sort of avoid getting into the problem before it happens. And I think that's like, as well, also what I think is really important is that ruqya, as in terms of treatment or Quranic therapy, treatment with the Quran, I think that it's suitable for so many things. It's suitable for any kind of illness you have, any kind of sickness you have, any kind of time you feel down or you feel, you know, whether it's something psychological, whether it's something physical, whether it's a real, like, you know, genuine illness you have whatever it may be, cancer, or you have like, you know, one of these really serious illnesses. You can still treat it with the Quran. Not to say that you don't go to the doctor, but you can add the Quran, the therapy of the Quran into that. So I think it's something that is just so practical for people to learn about the world of ruqya and its Quranic therapy. And then related to that is the supernatural, the jinn and, you know, magic and things like that. That wallah, you know, it's something that will bring a person an immense amount of benefit in their life. That's what I think.
Have you seen Ustad Tim's Abracadabra video? We discussed it before, haven't we? And then there's another one. I think you did Abracadabra, but you also did. You must have had a big response to that.
That's a very old video.
But you must still get people speaking to you about that video, because that went really big, didn't it?
The brothers, I think, did a good job of putting it online and promoting it.
And then there was another one, which was like the history of... I can't remember which one it is, but have you seen one where... There's one where you're talking about the man who like brought magic into like the West or something. Do you know what I'm talking about, bro?
Yeah, when we did the seminar.
Not that particular bit, but called...
and he used to like, turned out he was like worshipping the jinn.
And he turned his whole village ill because it was so...
I can't remember.
But quite a famous magician.
Yeah, you gave like the history of magic, basically, in like as we know it. And there was this man who, because I watched it so long ago now, there was this man who like, it was like really popular and famous because he like would do magic, and then it turned out after he died there was a lot of things that were found out about him, and he used to like go into a room and like conversate with the jinn or something.
I don't know that particular.
You know, this when I've done the history of magic, usually I start like right back in history, like,
yeah,
like
it was really
Babylonia and like Egypt, and but then when we talk about the UK, like when one of the sheikhs came, Sheikh Adil came to the UK, and I got to spend some time with him, and he's an expert on the topic of magic. And when I spent some time with the sheikh, we went together to the Museum of Magic in Cornwall, which is a museum in Cornwall which is dedicated to the history of magic in the UK.
You went there?
I went there with the sheikh.
I could never imagine that you would go. What did you see?
Well, the funny thing was,
when you say it was a museum of magic, what was it like?
The funny thing was that I wanted the sheikh to get like, you know, behind the scenes access, so I needed to kind of, but you know, like I couldn't really present him as he was, you know, so I couldn't really say to the guys that, look, hey, you know, we've got this guy, and by the way, he's responsible for, you know, sort of catching and, you know, therefore sort of the sentencing and the punishments that have been given out to all these magicians. It was a bit difficult to, so what I did is I without presenting in a false way, I explained to the people at the museum that he's a researcher on the topic, and he's written extensively on it. He has a doctorate. He's very, very well, very well read on the topic, and has a large collection of artifacts, which he's taken from all the magicians he's caught. And they actually gave him access to the private library.
Do you get
manuscripts and everything? It was
Really?
crazy. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, they actually gave him like behind the scenes private access to the whole place. And he was in his element. I mean, I've got videos. I mean, he's going around and he's telling the curator of the museum where the curator's wrong. You know, curator's like, this was from, 1897 and it's a voodoo doll that was made to basically, it was made to cause somebody to, it's probably as a curse. And the sheikh looked at it and said, it's got the wrong number of pins in it for it to be a curse.
Really?
It's like, that's the pin, it's the wrong number of pins. He said, that's not a curse. That was done for this day. And he's like teaching the guy in the museum, the curator of the museum, who was also a practitioner of magic in the sense of cultural and sort of the old village magic, that they have in villages in the UK.
Yeah.
Back in sort of Devon and Cornwall and places like that. So like this sort of Wicca and things like that. I was into all that type of stuff. So it was really interesting to hear about the history of magic in the UK. Obviously, you've got figures like Aleister Crowley and people like that who were big people in their time in terms of magic. But you've also got a long history of people practicing it in like villages and like druids and all this. It's a lot of interesting stuff.
Do you remember me telling you that at university then I learned that subject and my lecturer said that she's a witch?
Yeah.
So in university, I studied criminology, and one of my modules was called Myths, Monsters and Legends, and I think I mentioned that to you even last time I was.
I'm not sure, I can't remember.
And it's called Myths, Monsters and Legends, and we learned about everything from even the Hand of Fatima and all that kind of stuff, and to all different types of cultures that do different things. And the lecturer, she said herself, she was like, oh, I know so much about this because I'm a witch, and my mum or something who was like a grand witch or something, but a white witch or something. She was
white magic. That's what they claim. It's
yeah,
white.
that's what she said. I think that's what she said.
It's
yeah,
good
yeah.
magic. I hear that. It's white magic. It's good magic. It helps you.
Yeah. So this magic museum. When you went to this magic museum, did you get do you feel do you ever feel a vibe
Yeah, I you get that sometimes, but not in that place. But you when you do a lot of ruqya and a lot of treatment of people, you get a certain sensitivity to it.
Really?
And I'm not going to say it's not like a sixth sense. It's not like, I can perceive you've got, but you do become sensitive to it, and you get that sensitivity and you feel it from people
I remember because when Sam was telling you, I don't know if you remember a couple of years back when Sam was telling you his story about how he came to the religion. And what I remember is Sam was telling you things and you were finishing off his sentences for him. He was like, I saw this thing, and you were like, was it white? And I was like, oh my god, obviously.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, do you remember?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like I said earlier, a lot of people sent me your lectures, etc. Because how I came into the religion was through black magic, to be honest, and through Jinn. So I was sent you one of the first people, fairly one of the first people I kind of started studying from. Before that, I was actually kind of sent down the wrong path. But alhamdulillah, when I came back to kind of understanding it, so I listened to a lot of your stuff, and something you said a couple of times, so I almost listened to it thinking, I really want you to tell me some of your stories of where you've done ruqya, and you almost just said you only talk about it when it's from the Quran and the Hadith. So you'll never kind of mention about what they even maybe look like or what your experiences of them. And it's kind of it's relative, because I've had so many different strange experiences with the unseen. And when you do try to explain it, it's bizarre. And I've seen Jinn in so many different forms, but ultimately they are just a shapeshifter, and they will they'll come to you however they please. So in the form of gnomes or women or snakes or whatever it is. And it was just fun and interesting because I've had so many different experiences. But kind of what I heard you say was, it's almost, if it's not from the Quran Hadith, don't sort of entertain it and don't maybe talk about it so much, if that makes sense. So it's like you took strictly knowledge and facts that you know from the...
Yeah, I think that if we talk from experience, we can talk from experience, but we've got to qualify what we say.
Yeah. We've
got to say, look, my experience is ... But it's very different from someone saying that the Quran tells us.
Yeah.
So it's we want to distinguish between those two things. So I don't mind people telling me about their experiences, and I benefit from it. I might tell them some of mine, but those experiences are not an evidence for anything. They're not a proof. They're just experiences.
It's like a personal experience, isn't it? It's like because everyone almost people can kind of experience that in many different ways.
Absolutely, definitely.
I remember this Iraqi once told me, I was out and about. I think I may have like spat some chewing gum out or something. I can't remember what I did, but I remember him telling me that like almost being careful of things like that, because you know when, for example, let's say you're just out and you just spit a bit of chewing gum out, you throw something on the side of the street, and you like, I don't know how true this is.
Could hit a Jinn.
But if you hit a Jinn, the type of personality that they have is they're very fiery, so they'll get angry. They just want to like instantly pay you back, and so they'd like get very angry at you. And so he was like, you know, if you're throwing something, just like say Bismillah before you do, or something like that.
Yeah, I think some things are more common than others. I think it's probably pretty uncommon with you know, like some spitting gum out or something. But if, you know, for example, what used to happen, you know, especially in some countries today, but in the UK back in the days, you know, people used to pour hot oil, hot water out in the garden, you know, especially oil, you know, where they wouldn't necessarily put it down the sink or whatever. People would, you know, sort of go out in the garden or in the back alley or whatever and pour out, you know, hot liquids and things like that. Also people who might, you know, sort of use the bathroom outside, like go, or let me just go behind that wall or something like that. You know, that happens. Very, like, that's more common because it combines between two things. It combines something that's very harmful to the Jinn. It's very like, I mean, nobody wants to have boiling water poured over them. That's the first thing. And, or nobody wants to be, you know, someone to go to the bathroom where they're sleeping or something like that. And the second thing is it combines being in a place where the Jinn are commonly residing anyway. You know, you're in it, you're walking, you know, in the hills or whatever, already in a place where the Jinn are, you know, more likely to be there. We're not going to say you're in, you know, Jinn City or something, but you're in a place where...
Is that,
in the hills, in the hills, did you say?
Like, for example, you're walking out in the countryside somewhere. Okay. You know, the Jinn prefer... they have their own places, right?
Right.
And typically, they reside... One of the places they reside in are places which are uninhabited by people.
Okay.
Right? It's not like, you know, it's not sort of anything scary. It's just like, you know, you tend not to inhabit the places people inhabit. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِذَا دَخَلَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْخَلَاء, if one of you goes into the area which is like an open barren plain or an open area where people would use the bathroom, they would look at it like a ditch. And people in those days, they would just go in the bathroom in the desert, right? So they would just go out to the desert, look for a ditch where there's nobody there, and they would go and do their business. That you say, for, you know, as an example, you say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith. Many of the scholars say al-khubuthi and al-khaba'ith are the Jinn. So you're asking Allah to keep you safe from them. Likewise, when one of you gets down in a new place, he says, a'udhu bi kalimati Allahi tammati min sharri ma khalaq. I seek refuge with the perfect words of Allah from the evil that He created. That also indicates to you when you're riding along in the car and you stop off at a place that might not be inhabited. Typically, this is also an indication that this might be a place where the Jinn are residing, because your dua itself is asking you to keep you safe from the Jinn and the Shaitan and all of those things. So somebody's in that sort of area. It's an uninhabited area. It's an area where it may be that there are some Jinn around in a greater number than there might be in your house or, you know, in the street outside your house. And then you then combine that with something that's harmful for them, like going to the bathroom. You know, you kind of like, you're increasing the chances of doing something that, and yeah, you know, like, I mean, to be honest, a human being, if you poured boiling water on them, would probably, you know,
get vexed.
Would get upset with you, and you know, they could try to harm you. So I don't think it's that strange, you know. It's pretty common sense.
Could it be that a person does his adhkar? You know, there's adhkar that we know, like Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis samai wa huwa as-sami'ul alim. I don't know if I said that correctly.
Perfect, no problem.
If a person says that 3 times in the morning and the evening, they're protected from all kind of things. Oh, amazing. I'm going to pause it for a second because another guest is walking into the office and I really want to introduce you to him.
No problem, inshallah.
So that hadith, for example, is correct me if I'm wrong, but it protects you from anything throughout the day and throughout the night, right?
Yeah.
Could it be that a person does adhkar like that, for example, but still get affected by Jinn?
It could be. It's not the adhkar. First of all, there's a couple of ways that could happen. The first thing is that generally, as a rule, those adhkar protect you, but there's a couple of things that could cause that protection to kind of be diminished or lost out.
Okay.
One is where what I call kind of when someone removes the protection from themselves, so they say, oh Allah, protect me, oh Allah, keep me safe for the rest of the day, don't let anything happen to me. Then he goes to a place where a lot of haram is going on, and he's engaging in that, or he's involved in that, or he's taken himself to a place where he knows there's a lot of, you know, things going on that shouldn't be, or it's a place where he's putting himself in danger. And it's almost like that person is kind of, their limbs are kind of saying like, yeah, I don't really want the protection. If you want the protection, you have to do the causes for it as well. Means for it.
Could you just repeat that? Because if they were, for example, to do that, but they were to go to places, did you say that?
Like, so this person, right, says Allah keep me safe. Then
goes to a club.
2 hours later, you know, he says after Asr, Allah keep me safe. 3 hours later, he goes to a club.
Okay.
You got to ask the question that,
You're
you
not
know,
helping yourself.
like you're kind of almost saying that you don't really want that protection. Like if you wanted that protection, you would say, oh Allah, protect me. And then you would try your best to stay safe. It's like the person who says, you know, like, I don't want to be a victim of crime, you know, and then they, you know, middle of the night, like 2 a.m, they go to the most dangerous area in London and they walk around the streets like, you know, for 2 hours, and they're like, well, you know, I don't want to be a victim of crime. But, you know, you're putting yourself in a situation where you're putting yourself in danger.
So it's an extra layer of protection, but you have to do your bit too.
You have to do your bit. Like that's the principle of tawakkul, trusting in Allah, is that you got to do your part. And that's not because Allah can't protect you. Allah can protect you. But it's because one of the things Allah has put down for you as a test is, look, Allah has protected you in multiple ways. One of the ways Allah has protected you is by giving you the ability to protect yourself. Does that make sense? Allah has given you a way in which you can protect yourself. If you ignore that way and you don't follow it and you don't take by it, it's almost like you're removing a part of that protection from yourself. The other thing people do when it comes to adhkar is they're not engaged with it. Their tongue is engaged, but dhikr, it should be with the tongue and the heart and the limbs.
Guilty of that sometimes.
Yeah, we all do.
Like if I know Asr has just happened, but I know that when I first found out about the adhkar, I used to make sure that what I'm doing is I'm sat down and only doing adhkar, and then slowly I would find myself maybe like, okay, I've just prayed Fajr, but I've got to get to work. So what I'm going to do is while I'm making my breakfast, I can do my adhkar at the same time. And I catch myself, and sometimes I think to myself like, this doesn't feel right. Like, am I really protecting myself by do you know what I mean? Like, well,
sometimes you're all right when you do it, but sometimes the problem is when your mind totally goes. Like sometimes it happens to me when you're doing the tasbih and the, you know, like subhanallah and alhamdulillah, and you don't know whether you said subhanallah once or 500 times, you know, subhanallah, 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 your mind's going off on something else, you know, like subhanallah, subhanallah, and you know, there's no engagement of the heart. So that can be dangerous because sometimes that can reduce the effect of the dhikr. The third thing is something Ibn al-Qayyim mentions. Think about your adhkar like body armor. The more you do and the better quality you do it, the better level of protection you have. But the less you do it and the less you concentrate on it and the more your mind is sort of off on, you know, crazy sort of like, you know, it's off on a journey somewhere, the weaker the armor is. And if you come against a strong enemy with a strong weapon, you might still get hurt even though you had a degree of armor on yourself because your armor wasn't strong enough. Like somebody who put on like a, you know, like a stab vest or something and then somebody's shooting at them. You know, like at the end of the day, they've got some armor on them, but it's not enough to handle the weapon that's being used against them. So that can be also, think about it like that. The more you do the adhkar, the more adhkar you do, the stronger you do it, the more you concentrate, the stronger your armor is and the more you can handle people trying to attack you.
Do you have to do adhkar for your children?
This is where we get have a bit of a like sort of a distinction, right? So you can teach your children adhkar by doing it for them. So you're doing your adhkar for the children, like you read an ayatul kursi over them as a means of teaching them to do it for themselves. And there are certain adhkar you can do for your children, like u'idhuk. And u'idhuk, it's you know when you say a'udhu billah. So u'idhuk is the equivalent of saying a'udhu for someone else. So like when I say u'idhuk بكلمات الله التامة من كل شيطان وهامة ومن كل عين لامة, it's like I'm not seeking refuge for me, I'm seeking refuge for you. Like, oh Allah, I'm asking you to give this brother refuge, right? So anything you say a'udhu, you can always change it to أعيذك, which is to ask Allah for someone else. So there is a hadith you should say for children, أعيذكم or أعيذك بكلمات الله التامة من كل شيطان وهامة ومن كل عين لامة. And the Prophet ﷺ used to say this to Hassan and Hussein when they were babies. Other than that, you don't need to read all your adhkar over the children. But teaching them as they get older, you can read over them Ayatul Kursi when they go to sleep so that they can learn a habit. Sometimes you do that, and by the age of 4 or 5 years old, your kids know Ayatul Kursi and they know the calls and everything, because you're just teaching them, they get the habit from you. So you don't need to do too much for them, but you need to do a little bit as well.
Just going back to when you were talking about the locations of where the jinn may rest and may be, you were talking about in the UK, they might be in the countryside because there's people not there. When we look at the world, when we look at the globe, is there areas of the world where there's more shayateen, there's more jinn, like in the islands and things like that, or is it a kind of like an even distribution, as if they would be human beings, they'd be the equivalent of the jinn? Because am I right in thinking that when jinn caused so much problem on Earth and they were banished to the islands or so, the reason I ask is how I came to the deen. A friend of mine, a friend of his, was involved in black magic, and he would always go to the islands, maybe not Tanzania. Slip my mind where it is, but it was an island basically.
Bali.
It wasn't Bali, but it was.
I'm glad, because I really want to take my wife there.
Inshallah. It was the islands basically. I didn't know whether that was because is there more shayateen kind of in islands where people aren't, or does that make sense?
Okay, so there's a couple of answers to that. The first thing is we don't really know too much about the distribution of the jinn, and we're not talking about the shayateen, just the jinn as a whole. We don't know too much about their distribution. We have some evidence for it, like we have the evidence of when you go to the open spaces, seek refuge with the jinn, seek refuge with Allah from the jinn. When you seek refuge with Allah from the jinn, when you go into the open spaces and things like that. And we know that Quraysh, when they would go into a valley, when the army, they would go with an army on a military expedition, and they would go into a valley, they would actually do the wrong thing. This is before Islam. They would actually call upon the jinn in that valley. So we have some indications that there are certain places, but we don't really have like a way that we can sort of map out where they are. With regard to the magicians and the people who practice magic, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
They tend to go, the place that they go to it as an act of worship. Like actually going to that place is like almost like a Hajj.
Yeah.
Like we would go to Hajj. Hajj is, like the scholars define Hajj as, like linguistically, as traveling to a place of reverence and worship. Like I'm actually setting out on a journey for the purpose of reaching something which is revered or glorified or worshipped. And that's what the magicians do. They actually make a pilgrimage to a place which the shaitan commands them to do. And sometimes that place doesn't have any significance. It's just that the shaitan wants to see obedience from them. So the shaitan will say, I want you to go to the top of Mount whatever. There's no benefit for the shaitan in that. They just want to see that the person is, like putty in their hands, like that he's going to go anywhere. And that's why sometimes it's a little bit of something that people find difficult to understand. Like when they say, like, what do all these letters and numbers and symbols mean? Sometimes they don't mean anything. What they mean is that they were written at a particular time to show the person's obedience to the shaitan. Like that, like, okay, now write Alif, don't write anything else for the next 3 hours. Okay, now write Jim, don't write anything else. So the magician is showing their obedience and their devotion to the shaitan by writing those things. Sometimes they have meanings, but sometimes it is, like, so I read this, I was reading a forum of magicians discussing.
I love that you go to magicians' museums and you read the magicians' forums and stuff.
I don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Don't misunderstand that. That's like how I spend my day. Like, but sometimes, I wanted to study a particular thing,
right. And
it's considered to be one of the most powerful and greatest forms of magic that exist, and it's known as Zarkash Kawayan, something like that. It's a Persian grid of 10 by 10 squares. Each square has a letter in it. And the reason I wanted to study it is it was mentioned in the Sunnah. It was mentioned that when the Sahaba fought in Persia and when they conquered the Persian emperor used to take this basically giant ta'weed, giant like giant 10 by 10 grid and they carried it into battle. And the Sahaba just got rid of it, you know, like won the battle, give it here, rip it up, job done. Yeah, they just got rid of it. But I wanted to know more about it. And one of the things when I was searching, I came across a forum of magicians talking about it. When I was looking for Islamic evidence, I was looking for hadith and things like that. I came across a forum of magicians and they were terrified by it. They were saying that, you know, do your 3 by 3 squares, do your 4 by 4, but nobody does the 10 by 10 square. This can kill you. Just writing the square can kill you. And of course, they're like attached to the jinn and they have that fear of the jinn. And one of the weird things is how the jinn fear the magician and the magician fear the jinn. They're both scared of each other. That's perhaps part of the meaning of the statement of Allah, فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا. They increased each other in disobedience and transgression. Actually, they both are terrified of each other. But the magicians were so terrified of this 10 by 10 square. And this 10 by 10 square is just 10 squares by 10 squares. Each square has a letter or a number written in it.
Does the like... Oh, I've got a few questions.
So I'm going to tell you about this 10 by 10 square, right?
Sorry,
so what I was saying is that when they write these letters, it's not that the letter itself has a meaning. It's that they write that particular letter at a particular position of the stars and the moon and the sun as a symbol of their devotion to the Shaitan. And it has more power in it than if they were to write a particular word like Iblis or Fir'aun or whatever. So sometimes it's about they'll go to a place or they'll write a particular letter just to show their reverence and their worship of the Shaitan.
So is that again in relation to, you know, you got some videos of when you're pulling the Quran out of the sewers it's in Makkah as well, isn't it? And you're finding various forms of magic, and it's very random. A lot of it is very random. Is that reason why it's so random? Because it generally is random. It doesn't necessarily mean as much. It's just about the obedience for the magician doing what the Shaytan has said. It's
a mix. Some of it has a meaning. You can clearly see the meaning and you can understand it. And some of it is what the magician is told by the Shaitan to write down. And it has a meaning to the Shaitan, but it might not have a meaning to us that we can easily explain to people. It's more of an act of devotion.
What's the most bizarre thing that you've come across, magic-wise?
Wow, that's a.
Anything that stands out?
There's some really kind of scary sort of weird ones where you got like you open it up and it's blood, and there's also artifacts in there. There's eggs and pins and, you know, voodoo dolls with things stuck through them, and, you know. But then there's some that are just weird. Like there's sometimes you just come across things that are really weird, and sometimes you come across things that are like surprising in a weird way, like, you know, like I remember sometimes when you're opening something and you expect it to be like really bad, and it's just a printed page of something, just somebody went on the internet and just Googled it and just pressed print on the first thing that came out. You get a big mix of things, but sometimes it's like a mystery. Like you have, like, you know, 9 nails and you know, 3 eggs and, like, you know, a knot of someone's hair, and you're trying to figure out, like, what is that? What's that all symbol? And everything has this. It's very symbolic. Everything has a symbol. But yeah, like
so you can generally work them out. You can kind of, there's evidence to sort of work them out, explain what they are.
Usually, when you've read on someone, and what I usually find is the more you read on the person, the more you get towards the end of the magic, the more you kind of figure out by the end where it came from. Yeah. Not always, but usually where it came from and who did it and why, and that kind of ties into it. There are some things that you can know, like by counting the number of nails or counting the number of pins or things like that. You can figure out what is intended behind it. But also, sometimes it's like there are certain things that are, you know, certain colors that are symbolic, certain objects, you know, that are symbolic. And sometimes that helps you to kind of like figure out, even though I mean, it's interesting, but it's not essential for the treatment. You don't need to know why it was done. But it can be, you know, at the end, you're kind of like, all right, okay. So the egg was intended, this is a marriage thing. This is about, you know, bringing someone, you know, back towards the husband or the wife. And that's a red color. And then that's why the pin is there. And then that's why the hair is there, or that's why. But you just see so much, I mean, so many strange things. Like, I mean, you see even magicians like with more modern means than others, you know, the traditional ones, all knots and things, and the modern ones like padlocks and, you know, like those coded locks with numbers on and things. Like it's you don't stop being surprised by what you find.
Ustad, you know, with regards to the evil eye, you know, we know of the hadith that mentions that we should try and keep our plans private, and I'm assuming that's to protect yourself from evil eye. I might be wrong about that, but where's the line between like saying, you know what, I'm not gonna, for example, post about this on social media or talk to people about this because of because of ayn, and going too far with that and literally never doing that because you're constantly saying, oh, I might get ayn, I might get ayn, I might get ayn.
Well, that's a very good question. And there's even an ayah you can bring, and you can kind of ask yourself, where does this ayah fit in? وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. As for the blessings of your Lord, tell the people about them. How do you reconcile between that and between the issues of the evil eye? So there is a middle path to take. In everything there's a middle path. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We made you a middle ummah. Like you're in the middle in things. You know, if you live your life so in such fear of the evil eye and such worry about it that you actually stop doing things you're supposed to be doing. So people don't go to the masjid. I don't go to the jama'ah in the masjid because I'm scared of the evil eye. This is a big problem because now you're actually leaving off obedience because of the evil eye. That's not right. But there's also on the other side, there's another extreme where people post everything good that happens to them unnecessarily. There's no need to post it, and there's no benefit in it. There's no benefit in terms of there's no maslahah, no positive outcome you're going to get out of that. So the habits on social media is to post everything you do, right? People just post everything that they do. But I think you have to be selective. I wouldn't post something unless I had a very clear reason that why I want to do that. Like, why do I want to post a picture of myself, in a beautiful hotel, just really enjoying myself? Like, what's my goal behind that? Is it to tell people about the blessings of Allah? From what angle? What angle am I coming from that I want to tell the people about? Or am I just inviting people to give me the evil eye? But when it's sometimes, for example, we want to share something that someone did that's really good, we might not want to share it with necessarily their picture or their name. So we want to say, like, mashallah, one of the children in the class, may Allah bless them, they finished memorizing the Quran today, and we're really proud of them. Allah bless them, and don't forget to ask Allah to bless them. And so we kind of take some precautions in that. We have a reason we want to inspire other kids to do it, but we might not want to like put the guy's picture up on then. This is Muhammad, and today Muhammad did. Like you got to ask yourself, like, is there a reason for what I'm doing? Because even the ayah about telling people of the blessings, there are different ways of understanding the ayah, but just generally, like, ask yourself, what am I getting out of this? There are some ibadat you have to do in front of everybody. Hajj, for example. You can't do Hajj privately, yeah? Like, people are gonna see you. You have to pray in the jama'ah publicly. People are gonna see you. But as well, the principle is that whenever you can conceal your ibadat, you do them. So, and whenever you can conceal them from some people, even if you don't conceal them from others, you do it. So do I need to take a picture, of, hey guys, this is me in front of the Kaaba, click. And I send it out to everybody. What's my reason for that? What am I trying to achieve? Is there a real maslahah deeniyah, like a benefit I'm trying to get out of that? If there is, I hope Allah will protect me from the evil eye. Like, if my benefit is to inspire people for a certain thing, khair. But if my benefit is just to show people the lifestyle I live, I'm not sure Allah is going to protect me from the evil eye because of that. Because I'm not sure I've got a reason why am I doing that? And especially with my kids, I don't let my kids go on. I don't let anybody, very nadir, unless it's an error or a mistake, take pictures of my kids. Because
I was going to ask that, but I didn't know if that was too personal for the camera.
Like, no, I don't ever. And I don't tell what my kids do. I don't tell anybody. I don't even tell their grandparents sometimes, like what it is that they've achieved or whatever. No way, because
what's the reason behind that for the eye?
Yeah, because people give the evil eye, like, and there's a difference between someone who's a well-wisher and that person is a well-wisher. Like one of the brothers, he came to me and he said to me that my daughter's achieved XYZ, and wallahi, and what she achieved was unbelievable. Like but I was so happy for him, and he knows I'm happy. He knows the kind of person I am. And he knows that I would be, he hasn't told anybody about it, but he knows that I would be so happy for him that he achieved that. So he told me about it, and I was like, mashallah, it's amazing. We sent a little voice note that really well done. I'm so proud of you, mashallah. And you just, but that's a person, you know, they're a well-wisher. But on social media, how do you know those people are well-wishers? You know, how many people are looking at that and thinking, you know, how many people, they couldn't have kids or whatever, and they're looking and thinking, you know, why has this person got this? Why don't I have this? And, or their kids are not doing well, or they've got problems in their marriage or whatever. You know, you don't want to be posting that stuff out to everybody. Selectively telling people. I've got a group of people in the masjid. I tell them about something good that happened to me. I hope it falls under the ayah. أَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Tell the people about the blessings of your Lord, because I've got a reason why I want to share that with people. But with my kids, I try and keep them sheltered as well, because also it's not good for them, you know. When you live quite a high profile, you have quite a high profile, it's difficult for your kids. You know, like people come and say, oh, you know, can I have to take a picture with you? Can I have, you know, can I share some words with you? Can I be? And, you know, you kind of like, you don't want your kids to grow up like that, you know, because your kids are going to become, you know, you yourself are trying to avoid that kind of interaction with people. And you don't want your kids to have that kind of interaction with people. It's not right. So I try and shelter them and, you know, keep their feet on the ground and, you know, as much as possible. And if there's a need to share something, there's a need, you know, it's a different thing.
So were you saying it's almost the intention that the person has, the intention behind them to what they post could have an effect whether they will get evil eye or not?
Yeah, I guess not so much the intention, but whether they have a justification. That's a good word. Like, Islamically, do those guys have a justification for what they do or not? Like, is what you're doing when you're sharing with those people is justified? Because sometimes even giving sadaqah on the camera can be justified. Sometimes, you know, like you're trying to raise money for people and you want to really inspire other people to do it. But you got to ask yourself long and hard, because you're doing something that's different from the original way that we behave. The normal principle is every ibadah you do, you keep it completely private. Even from your own wife, your own family, nobody knows about it. You know, even your left hand doesn't know what your right hand gave. But there's times when you have to do ibadat in front of people. But this social media thing, the problem is there's no filter, you know. It's not like, I only want this to go out to the people that wish me well. Like, it's going to go out to a lot of different people. And that, sometimes, you know, you protect yourself and you do your best. But as long as you have a justification, as long as you can turn to Allah on the Day of Judgment and say, oh Allah, I did this because you told us this, this and this, and that's why I did it. But not out of my own pride, out of my own, you know, amazement by myself. You know, I'm like so amazed by my own achievements or something that I post it. You know, it's not beneficial. You be careful who you tell about the good things that happen to you. You know, try to limit that to people who you know have, you know, wish you well and really want good for you, and people who you know are careful to say Allah bless you, you know, mashallah, that kind of stuff.
Do you think that if just going back to the issue of your children, do you think that if it was more public, then people would perhaps treat them differently, because they would be like, oh, your dad is Tim Humble kind of thing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm strict on my kids on that. Like, that's why, like sometimes they get away with things. Like, it's not your dad's Tim Humble, but it's like, for example, your dad is the guest at our conference.
Yeah, like that.
So like, my kids can run wild when everyone else's kids have to sit still. Nah, I'll tell the guys at the conference, like, if you need to like put them down, you know, just deal with it. Just do it. Don't worry about it. Like, if you need to shout at them or you need to tell them, be quiet and sit down, because it's not good for their upbringing to have those exceptions, because they start believing that rules don't apply to us. So you see them going around running riot in any place, and they're like, yeah, because, you know, my dad's giving the talk, so I can do what I want. It's not a good, like, that kind of sense of entitlement. It's not good in anybody. Like, when you see like someone really famous or someone really like really rich, and they have like children who you know, say a big businessman or whatever, or a big figure in a country, and they have children that just like don't listen or don't behave with respect and stuff. Nobody likes that, you know. And from an Islamic speaker, it's even worse, because the speaker's telling about, you know, you have to raise your kids in the right way, right. You know, and your own kids are like really rude and stuff. So I try to keep them, you know, stop them from getting that treatment. But even though it happens anyway, like, you know, you still that's sometimes people are like that with guests, and it's not about being known or not. I mean, it could be any time. You could go to someone's house and you're a guest in their house, and they may like make exceptions for you and your kids that they wouldn't make for their own kids. Their own kids are not allowed in the living room with the shoes on, and they're not allowed to like eat their food on the sofa, and you know, your kids come and they're like, your kids are plastering chocolate all over their sofa, and they're like, don't worry about it, it's okay. You know, like they're thinking, oh my God, you know, my own kids I wouldn't do this with. So you got to kind of try and shelter your kids from that as well. And I think social media is dangerous for children at a young age. And I don't mean like I don't want to say, you know, your children should never ever look at the internet or something like that. But, you know, having them online and having them like live their life according to what other people like what they do or don't like what they do, it destroys your character. Wallah, like when we teach, one of the things we teach, I have to teach young kids today, the teenagers we teach today, is having a strong character and making your own choices. Because these kids now make their choices based on like how many likes I get. You know, do people, let me take a picture of my shoes. If enough people like it, I'm going to keep wearing them. And if people don't like it, I'm not going to keep wearing them. That's terrible for your character. Wallah, that's like, it destroys your character. You become you don't even become a sheep. You become like just completely, you don't have your own opinions. You're so sensitive and so scared about the fact that somebody might not like your trainers that you like, you know, you're scared to even go out of the house because you're frightened that somebody might not like, you know, that's horrible for a person's character. And what we need people who are like, have leadership qualities, people who just go out there and who, you know, they're trailblazers. They do what they want to do within the frame of Islam, and other people copy them. And that's a very personal experience I had when I became Muslim. I felt I was very, very scared to be who I wanted to be. Was very, very frightened to sort of present my own thoughts and things. And it's a horrible position to be in. And kids are increasingly becoming like that because there's so much pressure. I mean, if in a class, you can only get bullied by a set number of people. Online, you can get bullied by like 10,000 people at once, you know, like that's pressure, you know. What, my God, what, my YouTube career is going to be ruined, you know, if I say something wrong, if I do something wrong, if people don't like me. And as you know, you got to teach our kids to be independent. So one of the things is just sheltering them from that a little bit. And even the du'at, even the da'is, we say to them, just relax, don't go out there too quickly. You know, take your time to be who you want to be, form your own opinions, have your own ideas before you know, jump in front of a camera. Because once you start jumping in front of a camera, it's very difficult for you after that to change what it is that you've said or change your positions on things. It takes a lot of strength of character to do that.
When you became Muslim, did you, just like how, especially now, we're in a generation where we're getting like second generation, third generation Muslims who are like white British Muslims, but they're not reverts or anything. Like for example, Sam's children, they're not reverts, and they're born Muslim children, but they're white British children, right? And as we grow older, in this next generation, we're going to see a lot more of that than we have ever seen. So they, for example, would look at someone like yourself and be able to relate to somebody who is like from where they're from and stuff. When you became a Muslim, did you have someone like that you could look up to and you felt like you felt a connection with?
No, I don't think so. I don't want to say that there was nobody, because that's probably unfair. There's always somebody. But one of the things I felt is I kind of felt like I was pretty alone in Newcastle as a new Muslim. There were other new Muslims there. It wasn't like there was no other new Muslim there in the whole city, but there was nobody that I felt I could really relate to. And it was when I traveled, I started to meet people like that. And that's why when I was telling you, I went back to Newcastle and we've got like about, I don't know, it could be like 10, 15 brothers who are all reverts, who from different, you know, Newcastle and surrounding cities. And we all got together in a house. It was just amazing. It's like, you know, these are the people that I you know, would have loved to have met when I was at that stage. But I didn't really have somebody that was in my mind like that.
That feeling of being alone though, is it like, do you feel isolated? And does it make you almost feel, I don't want to say push you away from the deen, but do you get what I'm getting at, Sam?
The feeling of being
isolated because you don't feel like you can relate to anyone. I think as a practicing Muslim, maybe that stays with you, because especially living somewhere where there's not that many, you know, where it's generally not many practicing people, you kind of, if you really try, you know, stand firm to your deen, and you stay with it. A lot of surroundings, a lot of environments you go to, not everyone's on the same thing. So it's almost like you feel alone, like you're in an environment and people are having a conversation. It doesn't really add up to what you'd want to have a conversation about. You almost feel alone. You feel like I'm comfortable with that, and you feel other from it. I feel like
I don't think that will ever really leave unless you're in an environment where everyone's on the same page, i.e. this room now having the conversation. But more times than not, that's not the situation for me. So when I find myself, I feel kind of a little bit lonely. Alhamdulillah, I've got Muslim friends and a Muslim family, alhamdulillah. But I think when I became Muslim, when I really realised that I will be raised on the Day of Judgment alone, and it is about yourself, and accountability falls onto yourself. There's no one else. You can't blame anyone else. You can't say, oh, it's his fault. I think that feeling of that alone and standing there alone kind of resonates with me, and I feel like I kind of have still got that alone feeling, because although I'm not the most pious of Muslims, I'm trying, inshallah, but I feel like you kind of feel lonely because you feel like Islam is a rare thing. It's a rare thing, and to find people who are upon the correct Aqidah and have the same understanding and they're trying their best to be a practicing Muslim, I think that's a rarity. So I feel like you kind of feel that kind of lonely feeling just generally, because I feel society is kind of the opposite of where you're trying to go. So I kind of feel like you, even on the way here, you just feel like subhanallah, majority aren't practicing, aren't Muslim, whatever. So I kind of feel that lone feeling. Is that kind of what you meant or not really?
Yeah, I suppose what you're saying about I suppose it's also, there's a blessing in it, in that it reminds you of knowing, like you said, that you are going to be raised alone on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Even recently, I was thinking a lot about the hereafter, and I was thinking about the hereafter, like more so based on finances. I remember I was speaking to Ustad Jamal about this. Do you remember the conversation we had in my car? And I was basically saying that often we're told to remember death and stuff. We often when someone says to us remember death, you do think of death. You think, okay, look, I need to remind myself to fix up because I could die at any minute, and I need to make sure that everything's covered and I'm repentant, so that because while I'm still alive I have a chance to repent. But then I thought, one thing I don't think of as much is my finances. And something that I found so profound, and I think it was when in one of Sheikh Abu Osama's lectures, he spoke about I think it was one of his lectures, about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam not having prayed this janazah salah for someone who was in debt. And then I thought to myself, even if I am doing everything, this idea of I could die at any time, I need to transfer that from my deeds, but also to my money, in saying that I should be hastening to pay off any debts that I have, because I could die at any minute, and I don't want to leave my debts to somebody else, because I don't know what the condition of my family will be at the time when I die, right? I don't know, obviously, may Allah keep us on a straight path and guide us to a straight path, but I don't know if my family, if I'll even have family then, if whatever will happen. So I can't rely on that, because so while I'm alive on this earth, I want to, for example, pay off my debts, or I want to as soon as possible save up for Hajj, because I don't know when I will die, so I want to clear those things. So that's the thought that I was thinking of anyway recently, about the idea of not only with my deeds thinking, oh, I could die in a minute, but also with my money. So that's why I was saying, bro, remember we were off camera, I was talking about the coffee machine. I saw that £130 in my head as, but I know this might seem a bit deep for it, but almost
130 quid.
Yeah.
Blimey. Go on, Karen.
You could give me that. I was thinking that I don't need right now, but I haven't been on my first Hajj. But if I die tomorrow, whether I got that coffee machine or had instant coffee, wouldn't change what would happen in my grave. But if I had the ability to save up for Hajj and avoid getting these unnecessary things, and all that money accumulated would be enough for me to go to Hajj, that could be dangerous for me.
Yeah, I think it's, when preparing for the Day of Judgment, it's not just about the acts of worship. Because to a certain extent, the acts of worship, you have acts of worship you're doing every day, and you've got a bit of a routine in your prayers, in certain things you do, maybe your recitation of the Quran, and you can do more, there's no doubt. But sometimes it's about being I often think, okay, I die today, right now. And I had a lecture on this, if I die today,
I saw that actually.
If I die right now, what my family going to do practically? I'm over in Dubai, and I die. How is my family even going to get back to the UK? With what money are they going to get back to the UK? What about the house? Do they need to just practical things, would they need to go to the rental company and the real estate company, and do they need to fill in documents? How are they going to, are they going to bury me where I die? Because I want to be buried where I die, as long as I don't die in, some place where it's all non-Muslims, and I want to be buried in the nearest Muslim graveyard to the place where I die. I don't want to be transported around the world, you know. So do they know that? You know, do they even know how would my kids think about it? How would my kids, what kind of parting words of advice would I like to give my children? Wallah, it's very, very profound when you start thinking about it. Like, I just want to think, right, today you died, and now you imagine your wife, not the grief, the tears and whatever. Just imagine practicalities. Your husband just died today. Now, what instructions practically does she have to do in terms of procedures, in terms of, and you think that, oh, someone will tell her, but you know, to have that all written down, look, you need to go here.
It's your afterlife, it's your grave, and it's your body. Like, you should be allowed to dictate how you wish to be.
Yeah. And it's not just about the funeral. I'm thinking about, like, you know, it's weird, but I started thinking about things like my computer password and all my documents and lecture, like small things, but I'm thinking, like, you know, like they'd be thinking, like, all these people are emailing and asking questions, like, how are you gonna, like, so just giving them steps. Look, if I pass away, whatever you see that's on the computer, articles I've written, and you see it's of benefit, give it to one of the students of knowledge, let them read through it. It's of benefit, make it sadaqah jariyah, put it online so I can get the deeds for it, but let somebody check it in case there's any mistakes in it. If somebody emails, you know, send them a generic thing that, look, the brother has, you know, gone to the mercy of Allah, make dua for him, ask Allah to forgive him. These practical things, like, what, you know, if you're abroad, then this is what you're going to do. Alhamdulillah, my son's now old enough to be a mahram for my wife, that you guys need to just organize first things first to get back to the UK and get back to your family where you're safe and you're comfortable. Take your time, but don't feel like you have to stay for a certain amount of time. Like, obviously the iddah, if you can, if there's enough money there to pay the rent, you can stay for the length of the iddah period, and like all these rules and fiqh things that come up. And wallah, you're just thinking about all this stuff, and you're thinking, like, practically, you know, like, I'm talking about ibadah, like, did I pray enough? That's a separate issue. Like, but a lot of us think about that, like, have I done enough prayers? Have I done enough good deeds? But a lot of us don't think, like, what are my kids gonna think? Are they gonna think that my dad left me without any guidance of what to do in the world, what to do tomorrow? Like, how are you gonna put across words of? So it's really like a proper wasiyah, like, really, you know, like, this is what you should do. So I think that's a profound thing to think about, wallah.
When you talk about it like that, it really does make sense, and it also brings the reality of death to you as well. So it's also a good reminder. Doing that stuff also is a good reminder of death, because if you're sitting there writing instructions for what to do if you die, you're reminding yourself, wow, I'm writing this because I could literally die today. Like, and sometimes you think, oh, I'm 24. You know what I mean? Like, I can worry about that in 10, 20, 30, 40 years time, but it's not really at all. Like, well, who said I've got that long? And so that's why only recently I've started to think, well, I need to hasten towards, like, all of these things. Like, Hajj needs to be on the top of my list. It has to be. Or like booking, like you said, booking my grave, because I know where I want to be buried. I know that it's like the all-Muslim graveyard, and I don't want to leave it in. I don't want to leave it in the hands of someone else to decide, because for example, they might just naturally, like, in the rush of things and in the panic of, like, oh, he's passed away, just, like, book a graveyard. And also, I don't want to leave that financial burden on someone, like, oh, now he wants to be buried here, and this is how much it costs, and now we have to find the money. I'd rather, I don't know if it's possible, but just book my spot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not have to. It's like, all right, don't worry about this. It's done. It's sorted. I paid for it. That's what they already know what's happened. They were expecting. They've got my name on their list.
Yeah.
They're expecting me.
I mean, the thing is, when someone dies, it's hard enough for the family as it is, without having to think about, like, and worry about things, and just to have, like, you know, it's a set of steps the person can carry out, and you can keep updating it. But the nice thing is, you actually follow it yourself. You actually, like, you go to, I don't know, the graveyard and say, like, you know, if I die today, like, how can I be buried in this graveyard? That's a profound thing. That it's painful. You know, you go into the you go into the, whatever it might be, abroad, and you go into the British whatever embassy, consulate, and saying, like, you know, if I pass away today, what's the procedure for my family? Like, and that hits you like, whoa, you know, like, they might actually be here tomorrow saying that, you know, my dad passed away and we need to cancel our visas and whatever. We need to go home. That's profound. Like, how are they going to do that? Who should they even? Because you have so many contacts. You know, as the head of a household, you have so much in your head that you don't actually put down on paper. Like, oh, I know if I need to get home, they just need to call that brother Faisal, because he's a lovely brother, and he does the tickets for Emirates Airlines, and he'll sort me out with that. And then, they just need to call up this brother who does the visas, and they just need to, the rental company is just that guy. It's that guy Muhammad. Just, I've got his number. His number is the one on the phone, the first one on the M. Like, but can you imagine that actually that happens, and they actually have to take those steps? They might spend days just like running from place to place, just trying to find even who those people are. And I think practically, like, one of the things you should do is really honestly give some time regularly to go to the graveyard. Like, it's profound. And sometimes, especially when you go find an open grave and you actually just, sit next to it or stand next to it and you just look down in the grave and think, that could be today. And one of our mashayikh told us, he said that he went to a janazah of someone. There's two people, the sheikh and another two sheikhs. They went to the janazah in Medina. When they passed out, they passed by a grave that was it looked bigger than the others. And I'm sure it was a regular sized grave, but it just like, he looked at it and he said, wow, look at that grave. It looks a bit bigger than the others. And he said, it looks like it would be a place where somebody, it looks like there's some expanse in there for the person. Like, it just looked like it was separate from the others. Like, oh wow, that looks like a different place for someone to be buried. And he said that the next prayer came and that person was being buried in that grave. Like, the person who made that comment about it being a wide grave and a bigger grave was the one who was buried in it. And it was just like 2 prayers or whatever later, because they do it quickly there. And he passed away, and they did his janazah, whatever it might be, the beginning of the day to the end of the day or whatever, and they put him in that grave. And the sheikh himself told me a story. He said, the person with me said, like, look at how big this grave looks, big and different from the others, and he was the one buried in it. Wallah, it's like you. Sometimes with the kids, we actually take them and we should say, look, can you imagine what it's like if you lie in here and you put the cover over? That's it. You've only got what you put forward. It's profound. Wallah.
In Medina, is it the Baqi?
Yeah, the Baqi.
The Baqi, is that what it's called? Is that where so anyone who passes away in Medina, do they get buried there?
Yeah,
so there's only one graveyard in the whole
There's only
Medina?
one graveyard, yeah. So what they do is they have to kind of at times they have to make space, and what they do is they do a procedure whereby they sink the ground down and they bring new earth on top, so that they're able to almost have like a 3D kind of burial type site.
It is a bit of a.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, so there's some graves they just, there's certain areas they just leave apart, but there are cases where after a long time has passed, what they'll do is they do some sort of, I don't know how they do it, but they somehow sink it down and bring new earth on top in order to facilitate to bury more people. Because you imagine it there every single day, you've got a janazah in nearly every prayer. It's like when there's not a janazah, you're like, whoa, did the guy forget? It's like every single day, every prayer, you got somebody praying janazah. And how many of us don't even know how to pray janazah? Like, really, how many of us could actually tell our kids how to pray a janazah prayer? Like, a lot of us, because it's not something we do every day. And we sort of like, okay, what do you do in the janazah prayer? So, how many people, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned the virtue of having 40 of the people of Tawheed, who believe in the oneness of Allah, pray your janazah. But what do you do if all the people in the masjid, nobody knows how to pray the janazah, and they're all just doing the actions, Allahu Akbar, and you've only got like the imam who knows how to do it. So one of the things you might put in your wasiyah is that please advise the imam to remind the people how to do the janazah prayer before they pray over me. SubhanAllah, it's really.
I've never thought about that.
And also the washing of the body. I recommend also, if people, men and women, the women for the women and the men for the men, if you get a chance, go to the local masjid where they prepare the bodies, where they wash the bodies, and participate in it if you can. Like, if they allow you and if you're able, because it's a profound reminder. And also, most people also don't have a clue what to do. And ideally you would want the spouse to wash the body if possible, because the spouse, there's no aura for the spouse.
Just the spouse.
Ideally,
one person, really?
They can have people to support them, but particularly the ghusl and stuff, if possible. But often it's not done. These days, mostly it's just the men do the men, the women do the women. But there's a hadith in that regard. Aisha said, if I had the chance if the chance came again, only the Prophet's wives would have washed him. So you might, it's different things, but people don't know how to do it. People don't know how to wash the body.
When we were at the Baqi in Medina, there was a sign that said, when you leave, don't like turn around as you leave. And there was like the guards, and then I saw people were doing it, and the guards were so strict, like telling them off, like basically in Arabic saying, what you doing, and just walk out. But what is that? Is there some kind of like fabricated hadith that says? Or?
No, it's more like just a custom of the people that like. So the people, graveyards have always been places where people have lost their proper religious beliefs. So it could be a place where people start wailing. You know, traditionally the women of the Arab women of old, they would wail, they would beat their cheeks, they would scratch themselves, rip their clothes, things like that. And they would actually even pay people to do that sometimes. Like if you didn't have anyone to wail over you, you'd be like, oh, can I employ this woman? And she would come and she would wail over you. Like, so the Prophet ﷺ prohibited this, but you used to have like, oh, there's a woman that we pay to wail over us, when we die. And other things like that, like veneration of the people in the graves, praying to them, doing acts of worship towards them. And one of the things that people have is they would have like, because this graveyard, all of these pious people are buried here, is that maybe, we're not allowed to show our back to them, and we have to turn around and sort of venerate them. And like, like the king, like they tell you, like they do this with the Kaaba as well. So they say like, certain kings of old, you wouldn't turn your back on the king and walk out the room, So they do it with the Kaaba as well, that they'll walk backwards away from the Kaaba. Like, and this is not, the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it. So we can't come close to Allah with something he didn't do. So when he wanted to finish his time from the Kaaba, would just walk away from the Kaaba. He wouldn't, walk backwards. And the Sahaba never walked backwards. So also we can't do that either.
Going back to the subject of Ruqya.
Yeah.
Do you advise people who don't necessarily feel like they're inflicted by anything to have Ruqya and do it? And would you advise people to do it regularly or do it on themselves, or maybe where would you stand with just general someone who doesn't feel like necessarily they have an issue? Is it a benefit to do Ruqya anyway if you don't feel like you have an issue? And the other question was, do you feel like there's a lot of people who claim they may have a issue, i.e. Shaytaan, because they do certain acts that they maybe find it easier to blame people some blame Shaytaan for sins, etc. Do you feel like that's sometimes used too often as an excuse for someone's own?
That's a really profound question. I think that Ruqya is a treatment for a sickness, right? Yeah. So as a treatment for a sickness, you should really only use it when you think you're sick. You can use it if you're not sure if you're sick or not. That's okay. But I wouldn't necessarily just say to somebody, oh, you should be doing Ruqya 3 times a week. Because I don't see the Prophet ﷺ did that or the Sahaba did it. If someone was sick or thought they might be sick, that's a different issue. Mm-hmm. The question you asked sort of towards the end, or that last question, wallah, there's something really, really profound about this. And that is that the Shaitan takes advantage of what's already within you. That's normal. That's the way the Shaitan works. So the Shaitan doesn't go to somebody who's not attracted to gambling and then bring them to the casino. Very rarely it happens like that. The Shaitan works with what's already there. So even in magic, even in possession, the Shaitan works with what's already present within a person. So what you see that the Shaitan looks and says, this person's got a soft spot for the ladies, so I'm going to make his problem a lot worse. I'm going to make him commit zina. I'm going to make him watch haram. I'm going to make him do haram. But he's not making that without any ground. It's not like there's no ground to plant the seed. He knows that you have that inclination anyway. So this is actually a weapon for us, which is that when we're doing Ruqya and we want, again, extra sort of boost for our Ruqya, one of the things we can do is correct the basic flaws that we have in ourselves. Because when we do that, we actually stop the Shaitan from taking advantage of those things. So if a person says, oh, I'm possessed, and when I'm possessed, I do X, Y, Z. And that sin that they do, they're like blaming that completely on the Shaitan. I would say, yeah, no doubt the Shaitan is making it worse, but often it's because you have that flaw in yourself and the Shaitan sees you have an inclination to it, and now he makes it much worse than it was before. So I think it's a balance. I don't think we should be blaming everything on ruqya issues to the point that we don't, subhanAllah, like, people are like, my son failed his exams, must be the evil eye. Sometimes maybe your son failed his exams because he didn't work hard and revise. It may be the evil eye. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting saying nobody fails their exams because of the evil eye. But, maybe you could look at the fact that, maybe he didn't revise. Maybe he's out with bad friends and he got himself into a bad habit. Could be that. At the same time, on the other hand, you see people who have blatant jinn issues, magic issues, evil eye issues, and they don't do anything about it. They say, look, it's not that. Look, it's just me. I don't think there's anything wrong with me. And that's like somebody who gets cancer and says, I don't have cancer, until they die from it. Like if you have cancer, the best thing you can do is admit to yourself, yeah, I have this sickness. Now I need to go get a cure for it. So it's important to be balanced, right? It's important not to like be on one side or the other in this. Be balanced.
Jazakallah khair, Ustad.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you so much for coming back to Freshly Grounded.
It's been such a pleasure. I love listening.
It's always so nice to have you on, and I'm glad that we were able to do this with all of our, the whole team present. I actually had a question. What made you originally jump on Freshly Grounded? Because you had no knowledge of it really, so it could have been a really bad move for What made you say yes and be up for it?
I'm a person who I always look for opportunities to do something good, and I'll do a little bit of research in it. Okay. I'll make sure that I don't want to be on something where there's going to be something like really haram going on or something like that. But if I see an opportunity to do something good, then I'm going to ask myself, can I possibly participate in this in some way? And if someone's offering me a chance to participate in something good, wallah, I just want to take it. And that's the tawfiq from Allah.
So did you look into Freshly Grounded a tiny bit before?
The brief that you gave me about it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine.
You gave me a bit of a background and you said this is what we're trying to do. And I really liked it because one of the things I've seen from this podcast that I've not been able to do before is it reaches people who I wouldn't normally be able to reach. People who are maybe starting off on this journey of practicing Islam a little bit, and they enjoy listening to something it's fun to listen to, it's nice to listen to, they enjoy that. Maybe they're not quite ready for a series of lectures right now, or maybe that's not what they want to listen to on the way to work, But this fills a need that I don't think many people are fulfilling. So I personally thought it was an amazing idea, and I thought, there were some brothers who knew you guys as well, and so for me it's an opportunity to do good, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives that to us, that's a big blessing for us to have an opportunity to help people. Because if Allah helps one person through you, wallah, this is better than the dunya. Like in some of the narrations, it came khayrun min ad-dunya wa ma fiha, better than the dunya and everything that's in it, better than everything in this world, if one person just takes a benefit from what you said. So that's how it is.
We appreciate you coming down, and you're now a regular on Freshly Grounded, so we have an open invitation, inshallah. Next time you're in the UK, you're more than welcome to come down, and when we're in the UAE, inshallah, we'll be bugging you saying, Sam, we're here, let's we've got the microphones with us.
Any trips planned?
I think we had planned to go back.
Dubai.
Yeah, Dubai,
Inshallah.
but then it didn't end up going into fruition. But we do, inshallah.
I'd love to go this year, inshallah.
I think this year we will end up there, definitely. I think it's very high chance we'll be there this year.
Amazing. Come around, inshallah.
Inshallah, we'd love to.
We'll do another session over there, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Ustad.
Allah bless you.
Inshallah, that's the end of the episode. That's it.
Khalas.
Khalas.
Finish.
Bye.